All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Laura Wind Passenger, the Director of Operations for Prospect Management Company, and I really can't thank you enough for allowing us into your homes tonight, and hope we're able to make your time worthwhile. We've got about 1 minute before we can officially start, but as you can see from my screen share, we have got a variety of hosts or of sponsors this evening that we would like to thank as well. Husch Blackwel, of course, will be providing us with some legal insight a little later on this evening. And then, of course, our sponsors, Paul Davis, Weather Pro, Farmers Insurance, Peeper Power, and Kalman Restoration. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without them and the many other service providers that we work with. So we just can't thank them enough, and we can't thank you guys enough for all that you do for your community, for being our valued clients, and for being with us tonight. If you have to leave early or are unable to stay for the entire show, we are recording this event, and we will be posting it onto our website, www.pmcwi.com. We'll be posting this video as well as all of the other seminars that we've put on. So lots of great information there on our website for you and your fellow board members. I think we are about ready to get things started here, and I will load up. As I had mentioned before, we've got a couple of videos from our sponsors that we wanted to share here.
Your family, your business, your home. Turn to insurance advisor Jeremy Panzenko for the peace of mind to protect the things you care about most. His modern office offers exceptional coverage in all lines of insurance, including auto, home, business, and life. Jeremy's agency specializes in commercial and condo association insurance in Wisconsin and Illinois. It's important to find an agent who understands the unique factors of condos to educate and help property managers and condo boards alike on minimizing potential gaps or overlaps in coverage. With a degree in real estate and property management, Jeremy has managed condos and large-scale apartment communities for 15 years, earning some of the highest designations from the Community Association Institute, including the CMCA and the AMS. After insuring community associations for the past 10 years, Jeremy's agency is the largest insurer of condo associations in Wisconsin, earning him the Commercial Elite status, a title held by only 2 agencies in Wisconsin. Jeremy offers insurance through a wide range of carriers that are specifically tailored to each association's needs, including preferred companies like Farmers Insurance, as well as middle market companies like Travelers, The Hartford, Liberty Mutual, and Guard. Here is what some of his customers have said. Susie from Brookfield. Jeremy is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to condo associations and insurance. I'm on the board and we've been using him for 9 years and would never consider going anywhere else. Don from Chicago. After having a large water loss of almost $1 million in repairs, Jeremy's office staff were amazing. His team of adjusters were top-notch, very professional and efficient. Like their commercial says, they had us back to where we belong very quickly. For questions on your community's insurance or to get a quote, contact Jeremy today.
We are farmers. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum.
Hi, my name is Rick Spalding, and I'm a service manager at Peeper Electric. I have been the exclusive electrical provider for Prospect Management for over 10 years now. I work hard to meet the expectations of Prospect Management, but more importantly, for every association we provide services for. We are available 365 days a year, 24/7, even on my birthday.
No way.
The #1 emergency response electrical contractor in the state, from fire to water loss to mold. A quick shout out to Bill and Margaret Hebner, the owners of Prospect Management, along with their entire staff that work diligently each day to meet the requests by their clients. And finally, a thank you to each and every board member who donate their time to make their place a better place for all. And thank you to all of those who have trusted in us to provide electrical services for you over the years. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Polinsky and I'm with Weather Pro Exteriors. You may have seen some of our commercials and ads and possibly even seen us at local trade shows such as the NARI Home Show. What you may not realize is that we have a commercial and multifamily division. This is where I come in. I represent that division and oversee it. Weather Pro Exteriors was founded in 2008 and we focus on offering the best products along with competitive pricing. We do specialize in roof replacements, shingle and flat, so you've got your steep slope and your low slope options, gutter replacements and siding replacements. Our crews are knowledgeable and experienced with replacing James Hardy siding, LP Smart siding, as well as mastic vinyl siding. We also have a service division that can handle all of your smaller needs, such as roof maintenance, gutter cleaning, leak assessments and repairs. Along the lines of leak assessments, we will go out and meet with the homeowner, inspect the interior where the leak is occurring, do an inspection of the exterior, and then provide a detailed report to the property manager, as well as pictures and recommendations so that the board has a clear understanding of what we believe the situation to be. So we work with multiple condo associations that are managed by Prospect Management Company, and we do hope to become your preferred roofing contractor.
Kelman Restoration was founded 45 years ago, 1973, right here in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, by two best friends, my dad, Jerry Kelly, and Dick Nigaman. I remember coming here with my dad when I was 4 years old, going up to Ace Hardware, getting a Three Musketeers bar, sitting in his truck as we came to work on a Saturday. So I've been in Kelman my entire life. So what do we do? Fire damage, water damage, the list is endless. We're the people you call when you don't know who to call. We encounter people on their worst day, potentially. You may have lost a pet or family heirlooms or potentially a family member. It's a horrible day and we can come in and make it a little better and get your life put back together. We're blessed to impact the lives of our 75 employees that have been here for 40, 45 years, their families, their kids, their grandkids. And we do a lot in the community as well. And it's not just things that we believe in, it's things that our employees believe in. Whether it's the Hank Aaron State Trail, Easter Seals of Southeastern Wisconsin, the Guest House, so many organizations that we get involved in. Why Kelman? We have the resources of a national company, but we have a local touch. If you have a problem with your job, you're talking to me, you're talking to one of our managers. We're able to really help you through this process. Over 45 years, a lot changes, but there's some things that don't change. We're still family owned and operated. We're still here in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, providing great customer service to all of our clients, and we have the best employees. We're one big family, because at the end of the day, isn't it nice to know you can always count on family?
Thank you so much to them, and thank you for bearing with me as I transitioned to the different screens. Before we get right into it, I do want to take a moment and also acknowledge our property managers who are on with us tonight as well. You'll see them starring in the videos, and I think we've got all of them on, but just in case you aren't aware, property managers, of course, our two fearless leaders, Mike Leach and Mark Schultz. We could not do anything that we do without them. And then, of course, we have Erica, Jason, Janine, Jennifer, Kyle, Mandy, Mike Edeldorf, and Patrick. And so thank you all. If you want to give a hello, I know everybody's muted, but thank you so much for joining us and for helping out in the presentation that we will be putting on for you tonight. So as I showed earlier, we're going to be doing the presentation that the managers worked so hard on. It is kind of poking fun at some of the things that we see in board meetings and some of the do's and don'ts. We find it funny. We hope that you find it funny and educational as well. So without further ado, I am going to load this up as well.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to be discussing the do's and don'ts of board meetings. What we're going to end up doing is looking at 5 different scenarios that tend to come up at board meetings from time to time. Mind you, these scenarios are extremely exaggerated, but it does highlight what could potentially occur at board meetings and what some of you may have actually experienced at your board meetings. Each scenario was put on by our management team. We do truly hope you find this useful, humorous, and educational. I can assure you we all went above and beyond with our acting capabilities. After each scenario, there'll be about a 5-minute discussion on what transpired during the meeting, as well as what could be done differently to better address those issues that arose. We do truly hope you enjoy. The first scenario will be the angry homeowner. The second scenario will be the arguing homeowners. The third scenario will be the board member bully, because we all know they exist. And then the fourth scenario will be the treasurer's report. And finally, the fifth scenario will be a board of directors just conducting the business on the agenda. So once again, we hope you enjoy and sit back and relax.
Next on the agenda is roof replacements for all the buildings. Jen, do you have proposals? Have you received proposals for the roof replacements, and have any idea how we might fund that?
Well, we received proposals from 3 different vendors. It looks like the little average probably about...
Can I see some of those proposals? Are those posted anywhere that I can see them?
Can you hold off until she's done talking, and then there would be a point for homeowner comments at the end of
I just want to know if I can see those proposals.
And I just answered your question.
Okay, so we are looking at, it'll be just over $1 million to replace all the roofs on 18 buildings. So if we split it up between 3 years, it's about $350,000. Right now our reserves are only at $500,000. So
how did they get that low?
What?
I pay every year for things, and you guys handle the money, and our reserves are that low?
While we can understand your concern, this isn't the time for comments or questions.
I think this is a meeting, it's an open meeting, I'm here, I should be able to ask questions.
You're able to ask questions when we're in the homeowner forum. Right now, this is open for you to just see what we are discussing. This is a discussion with the board. Thank you. So we now have been spending probably between $25,000 to $30,000 in repairs each year in our roofs. So we need to, we're starting to bleed money on just repairing them. So we need to start looking at really how are we going to financially be able to replace all of them. 5 buildings, the way that they're actually placed, we always seem to get a lot of wind damage and maybe possible hail, but we haven't had anyone really go look to assess how much of the roof is affected by that type of weather. So we could consider
my building
putting in
has
a
had
house.
wind damage
Excuse
for
me,
3
sir.
years, and you guys haven't done anything about it yet.
Again, this is not your time. We will listen to your comments when it gets to the homeowner concerns portion of the meeting.
For 3 years, I've been trying to get something done, and you guys haven't done anything. And now you're saying that we don't have enough money for roof replacements?
There is a time and place for your comments and your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them, but now is not the time while we're conducting business.
This is the time.
Actually, it's not, and if you continue, we will ask you to leave. Thank you. So, there is a possibility of opening up an insurance claim to see if maybe we could possibly do it that way. The building's total value for all of them is about 17 million, and our deductible is 0.05% for wind hail damage. So it looks like if we try to do that, we would be paying a deductible of about $80,000 instead of paying like $350,000 for 6 roofs. We might be able to get some of those roofs done for that.
I think we should definitely explore that avenue first before we make any final decisions.
Yeah.
Have we talked about getting a loan to possibly make these repairs?
A loan?
We can actually try to get a loan, but right now the rates are not that great. One thing that we can do, again, we'll be paying on that loan for 10 years. So not only will we have the money, but then how are we going to pay that loan back? We were still either looking at increasing fees drastically or doing a special assessment to get us to pay that loan back.
Good point.
So
have you thought then about a special assessment and how that would fit in as far as amounts and over what period of time?
I have to do some calculations, but if maybe we could consider doing a 3-year assessment for each year of the project, doing a portion. So the first year we have covered with our reserves, but we won't be able to cover the other 2 years. So if we take that total 700,000 divided by the 18 and see what that comes up to, and then special assess that way. But we're also, then that's not including increase in products each year as well. So we might want to talk to.
That would also be leaving us in a dangerous position as far as where our reserves are at.
Yeah, especially if we have concrete and asphalt projects, any other capital expenses that we're working on, siding possibly. But these quotes with the roofs are roofs and gutters to do. Okay,
So wait a second. A special assessment. I've been paying my dues every month for all these years.
Sir, excuse me.
And my turn to talk.
You have been asked several times to quiet down.
No, my turn to talk. I've waited for my turn.
You have been asked to wait for the
I've been a homeowner for 10 years now, paying my dues every month on time, and you guys are in charge of them. I've had a roof problem for 3 years, and you guys haven't done anything about it.
There's no decision
Now that we
right
have
now.
no money in the account, we're going to start taking care of things.
I make a motion that we table this discussion. We're not going to get any farther here.
I second that motion.
Now's the time to talk about this. Now's the time.
Well, clearly Kyle was an angry homeowner. Unfortunately, we do see this from time to time in our meetings, and I'm sure you may have very well experienced something similar to this. But let's take a look at what went right. I mean, what happened in that meeting that tried to address the situation? We had the president was running the meeting, asking questions of the treasurer at front, but then the homeowner gets visibly upset. Jason tries to address the homeowner when he was cutting in, but still allowed him to talk. Jenny also tries to address the homeowner when Jason went quiet. Both Jenny and Jason attempted to calm down and appease the owner, but it backfires. as I'm sure you have dealt with this issue as well. When a homeowner is visibly upset and arguing, the worst thing you can do is engage with that homeowner. And we'll give you some tips here in a minute. And what really went wrong and what caused this issue to evolve and how it did. First off, you have the homeowner sitting at the table. We did this on purpose to highlight this, as we do know there are associations out there that do allow their homeowners to sit at the same table with the board of directors. This not only interferes with the board's ability to conduct the business, it also invites the homeowners to give their opinions. And after all, as a board of directors, you were elected by the homeowners to govern the affairs of the association, not listen to one homeowner telling you how you should be governing your property. The homeowner starts cutting in, the boards allowed him to run with it for a bit, and that's really what triggered the whole thing. The homeowner starts asking various questions and visibly upset. The treasurer and president started engaging with the homeowner, and the homeowner started demanding answers. The meeting ended basically with the board president adjourning the meeting, and it turned out into an all-out argument, which is what we want to avoid. So how can we avoid this? The best thing you can do is remind homeowners when your meeting starts that the board meetings are for the board of directors to conduct the business of the association. It's not the homeowner's time to share their concerns and vent to the board of directors about why they're upset over XYZ reason. You can have a homeowner forum, and we'll go into that here in a little bit, which does assist with that. However, you are holding a meeting to conduct the business of the association. So it's always good to remind your homeowners of that and set the tone. You can also remind your homeowners, as I said earlier, that you were elected by the homeowners to conduct the affairs of the association. What you were not elected to do was have one owner bully you into doing something because you don't want to deal with them. The best thing you can do, though, is whenever you have an angry homeowner, is to avoid any discussion or engagement with them. Let them vent, let them get them off their shoulders, and then just simply state that you'll follow up with them at a specific time frame. And let the owner know that, so they know when they can expect to hear from you. Again, the last thing you want to do is try and engage or say you're overreacting or please stop talking. Just let them go for a minute, and then when they stop, then you just simply state that, you know, we're going to discuss this matter. We appreciate your information, but this isn't helpful to the discussion, and if you continue to cut in, we're going to ask you to leave. And then you just stop. And if the owner keeps on cutting in, ask him to leave. And if he doesn't leave, you sit there uncomfortably and don't say a word until they leave. That's probably one of the best things you can do, and it avoids additional confrontation. So the next scenario we're going to look at are the arguing homeowners, which is always fun to see happen.
Okay, I call this meeting to order this evening at 6:35 p.m. And we have a quorum. And we also have some homeowners present. That are residing in the association. And they have some things I want to bring to the board for concern and for the board to deliberate.
Yes. I'm sorry, sir. I have an architectural variance that I'd like to submit to expand my porch.
Do you have any for the homeowners to look at as well? Since you're my neighbor, I would like to see what you want to propose.
It's none of your business.
You each have 2 minutes. So we're going to start with this person first, and Mr. Roth in the black shirt.
Thank you. So yes, this is my architectural variance. These are the plans that I have established with a landscaper to expand my back porch area.
Which landscaper did you use? Did you use the one that I recommended? Or are you too upset about me from the other night because you lost money to me in that bet?
No, I went with my own. I found somebody else. Yes. So just would like you all to look at this and
well, thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Well, so he wants to extend a patio, right?
Right.
According to these plans.
I want to extend my screened-in porch, but I can't do that if he extends his patio. I don't have an ARC request. I didn't read the procedures of your association.
How long have you lived in our association?
About 10 years now.
I've lived here longer.
That's correct.
So, yeah,
I've lived here for 10 years and you've lived here for 15, so you're suddenly more special than me because you want to enlarge your patio?
No, I've submitted my request first before you did. I have plans all drawn up and I've lived here longer, so I think that...
Well, what does the board have to say about this? Because
the board is not going to make a decision on either one of your requests this
So why are you even putting in
So
your
you're going
request?
to punish me because he's being argumentative?
It's not.
I don't think they're punishing you. I think they're rewarding me.
Well, they're punishing me because I gotta look at your atrocity of a screen and.
Oh, and I have to look at your atrocity of your patio with your little hammock and your flower pots everywhere. I mean, geez, do you ever weed your flower pots?
Flower pot?
Yeah.
Weed my flower pots?
Yeah, weed your flower pots.
Those are all flowers.
They're dead.
No.
They are dead.
No, they're not.
I saw a dead twig in there, and you're not maintaining them, and I've been staring at it all day.
No.
And all I want to do is extend my patio so I don't have to look at
I'm
it.
allowed to have flower
One person at a time.
I am allowed to have flower pots.
Are you?
Yes.
And how do you know this? Because you lived here for 15 years?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt in the blue shirt? Oh,
20 minutes later?
And you know what? I'm sick and tired of you and your flower pots that you are not going to approve this abomination of my neighbor's house. I'm running for the board.
Don't you all just wish we had a homeowner too that would volunteer for the board of directors when they were upset? Oh, life would be great. But let's look at what went right. You had the president was attempting to prohibit arguing amongst the homeowners. You had the president attempting to table the conversation. The vice president tries to intervene by stating that their requests will not be voted on. But the two homeowners just really went at it with one another because they visibly don't like one another. Now, what went wrong? Obviously, the two homeowners arguing. This should have never occurred in the first place. If there was any knowledge that these two homeowners were to come to the meeting, they should have been split far away from one another, not right next to one another where their emotions are going to run high. Homeowners 2 obviously flew out the handle along with homeowner 1. They were both extremely argumentative with one another. The homeowner 2 shows a complete disregard towards the association rules and regulations. And finally, there was just a lot of arguing that was allowed to continue by the president and the rest of the board of directors by not trying to stop that. And what can you do? What can you do differently to prohibit these issues from occurring, as they do come up once in a great while? The best thing you can do is have a homeowner forum with guidelines. We do see agendas out there that just say homeowner forum, and for most associations that works. You have a very great group of owners. For those more problematic homeowners, you should formulate a policy for that. You should have it to where homeowners have no more than 3 to 5 minutes to talk about their concern and present it to the board, and that's it. Your rules should clearly state that no decision will be made, and those should be reiterated at the start of each homeowner forum section on your agendas. Additionally, avoid engaging with the homeowners in discussions when they're less than pleasant to communicate with. If you don't clearly understand, just accept the information and say you'll follow up with them. And as in the first example, give a date when you'll follow up with them so they know when they can expect to hear from you. Another great way is just to educate your homeowners as how these ARC requests work. I mean, it is 2021 after all, and should you be presented a piece of paper at a board meeting versus it coming to an email to you from your management company? And finally, again, never make a decision when anyone ever demands it, whether it's a board member or not. If it's not on the agenda and it isn't a researched issue, you should never make a decision on what you are being asked to do unless you have it posted on the agenda and you have the information to make that informed decision. Next, we're going to move on to the board member bully. This will be fun.
All right, so moving on to the new business, we have our snow removal contract. We did get 3 bids. One is for Smith Snow Removal. One is from Good Buddy Plowing, and the other is from Shovel Me Not Snow Removal. Thank you, board, for working to get these bids. So it looks like Smith's is the cheapest, Shovel Me Not's the most expensive. We did make sure that they're all apples to apples, so they're all quoting the same thing. There's quite a bit of difference between the lowest and the highest bid, with Good Buddy coming.
Well, I guess as the board, have we really discussed what we feel we want from our snow removal vendor? Because I'm concerned that we have this lower price vendor out there who's bidding against somebody who is obviously higher priced, like Shovel Me Not, which in turn is going to mean we just get a better service for our homeowners. So I guess I'm just wondering is, should we even consider Smith Snow Removal given they were so low? I'm concerned that they're not going to be able to meet the standards that Shovel Me Not would be able to give our association, because I do have a friendship with the owner of that company and I've seen his work and it's great work.
I appreciate that insight. We did walk around with all 3 companies. I know you were only present for the Shovel Me Not one, but we did meet with Smith's as well as Good Buddy. We felt that all 3 quotes were very accurate to what we were looking for. They all feel that they can cover it with the manpower that they have. Good Buddy would be a good compromise in my opinion. They're not the highest bid, they're not the lowest bid, they're pretty close to the
So
lowest
did
bid.
Good Buddy owners give you his personal cell phone and email when you were meeting with them? Because that's my contact with Shovel Me Not. If there's an issue, I can instantly call them and get a turnaround real quick. Whereas I'm concerned using these other vendors with their managers, not the owner of the company, just getting overwhelmed because they overwork them. Whereas I have a direct contact with Shovel Me Not to the owner of the company, so he can make immediate responses to our concerns versus going with these other two that may take longer to resolve our concerns.
I just have a question. Is there any leeway in the price? Because I'm the treasurer. I just want to make sure that we're staying within our budget and that you're not going over budget.
Well, I guess as a board, we need to decide as a board is what do we want from our vendors? Do we want to save as much money as possible and maybe get an inadequate service, or go with a higher end vendor that can give us the results that we ultimately want so we can sleep easier at night knowing our homeowners aren't banging on our doors? Because quite honestly, I'm getting sick of Flo talking to me all the time.
Well, we did get some testimonials from both Smiths and Good Buddy that the former customers that they had or their current customers.
So nobody bothered to call those testimonials?
We did call them, yes.
Okay.
And they were very happy with the service. I called both of them.
You called them, okay.
Yep. We got business cards for the representative. It wasn't the owner, but it was the representative who will be specifically handling our property.
Sure. Well, I get that. That's awesome that you got those contacts from those vendors, but I really feel that Shovel Me Not's the way to go. It just makes sense. Yeah, it's a little bit more money, but this is a vendor that is going to give us the results that we want. It will deal with our snow complaints that we've been getting nonstop with our homeowners. And I really think it's kind of pointless to even discuss any other bidders against them because of the relationship I have with this owner of the company and what they can do for us and what I know they will do for us. So I would make a motion right now that we just approve Shovel Me Not so we can move on from this discussion, because to me it's just a big waste of time to have this discussion. We know who are the great bidders. We know who are the great vendors. And we're considering going with two lesser vendors just because of price, because it's going to save us money.
Okay.
I mean, call me crazy. That's not why I moved here, just to go with the lowest bidder all the time.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table at this point. Do we have a second from anyone?
I'll second it.
Okay. This is the time for discussion then. Do we have any other discussion from board members? I personally feel like we should maybe do a little more research. I don't think we should just go with the highest bid. No offense, just because you're friends with that person. I feel that we should do our due diligence and make sure we're giving the owners the right price for what.
And I appreciate, and we have done that, getting the 3 bids. But I think for us to discuss using 2 subpar vendors who clearly did not quote right, being so much lower than Shovel Me Not, it doesn't make sense to go with those 2 bidders just to save a few bucks. So I guess we've had the discussion,
Erica,
so
do you
we
feel
should just
that
call it.
based on our walk-arounds that they were quoting what we need?
Yeah, I really liked working with Good Buddy. I thought they were reasonable and their recommendations were good.
And that's fine. But I think the motion was made, it was seconded. I think now we deserve to call it to a vote.
Is there any other discussion from anyone?
Yes. I was going to ask, will they come out before 1 inch?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's part of their contract. Yeah.
I mean, personally.
I think so. Let me look. Yeah, that's in there. Yeah. Sorry.
Personally, I'm against this. I feel like.
Okay, but as president, you're not supposed to vote. You're supposed to exclude yourself from voting.
But we're not at the voting point. We're still in the discussion point.
We should probably call it the vote then.
No, we're still discussing it at this point. So.
Okay.
Personally, I think Good Buddy is the right approach, and based on what we have here, they're a reasonable price. They're not the lowest, they're not the highest. That would be my vote, but as Mike so pointedly stated, I do not have a vote in this instance.
All right, well.
Is there any other discussion?
I don't think there's much more to discuss about, Mike, do you?
Sorry.
I think we've discussed, you and I talked about this before the meeting.
We did,
Yeah, so I don't know what more we got to talk about. I think we're ready to vote.
You got no leeway for Good Buddy at all.
Nope, it's Shovel Me Not.
It's just Shovel Me Not.
Good buddy, bad buddy.
Well, I did second your motion, so.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So let's look at what went right. Well, number one, the president comments on what's being voted on as well as reviewing the pricing from the various vendors. The president defended how the bids were done and how the bids were obtained. The treasurer asked questions on pricings and if everything was negotiated. Everybody did their research on the vendors and the referrals, with the exception of the member at large. And the president attempted to steer the conversation to a more constructive conversation. What went wrong, though? I mean, really, you had the member at large really overtake the conversation and kind of drove the board to what he wanted them to do. The member at large clearly has a motive for approving the vendor Shovel Me Not, which why would you ever approve a vendor called Shovel Me Not? But the member at large really did try and strong arm the president and convince the other two board members why they should vote his way. The member at large really didn't seem to care what the rest of the board did, and it was his way or no way, and made it very clear and pushed people to vote that way. The member at large forces a vote at the end, and all the board members, lest the president does cave in. I mean, he clearly showed a blatant disregard of all the vendors, with no proof at all, stating that all other bidders misquoted the property due to them being significantly under what his friend quoted. The member at large continued to push the issue and eventually got his way. You could see that the vice president was clearly disappointed, but still voted to approve Shovel Me Not along with the treasurer of the association. So what could be done differently? Because we do see this come up. Not to that extent, again, because we're exaggerating everything to highlight things, but it does happen where you have a board member who is extremely passionate and sees no other way forward other than what's in their mind. Should the Shovel Me Not bid have not been considered? Potentially. If it was disclosed ahead of time that the member at large knew the owner of that company, that's fine. Then there isn't a conflict of interest. However, the member at large should have excluded themselves from that conversation. The president should have stepped in and stopped the conversation when the member at large started attacking and mocking other bidders. The board members should have been reminded that they are to do what's in the best interest of the association and not listen to the bully board member. And finally, the treasurer and vice president could use a little education on what it means to meet your fiduciary responsibility to the association and never cave to that pressure. It's probably one of the most challenging and uncomfortable things when you feel like you're being bullied as a board member, but recognizing it and stopping it and developing a plan real quick on how to move forward is probably the best approach to deal when you're being requested to make a decision you know you don't want to make because you don't want to upset this board member or maybe they're your neighbor. But again, you always got to remind yourself you are tasked with doing what's in the association's best interest, not I don't want to deal with an angry homeowner or my neighbor board member who's going to be angry at me. So just always keep that in mind, and it will make life a little bit easier when you do run into those issues from time to time. The next exciting topic we're going to move on to will be the treasurer's report.
Go.
All right, now we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay.
Yeah, so just looking at these accounts, yeah, I think everything's in order, just the way it should be. And it's, yeah, I don't see any overages anywhere, and I guess I'd recommend these for approval.
If I could chime in, if that's okay, I just wanted to mention a couple things that I saw when I was running through the report. I know you have landscaping improvements on your agenda to discuss a little bit later tonight. When looking at the income and balance statement, it does show that you're at budget for those items already. Based on your current operating account funds, which is on the balance sheet, I think it might be a good idea to hold off on those till a future year when you can build them into your budget or have some additional funds available for those.
Sure, yeah, so that this account here?
Yep, yeah, right there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially right here, you did go a little over in your snow removal this year. As you know, it's a per plow service, so it kind of is based on how much snow we get. So you are a little low in funds right now. It might be worth just holding off on that. I know it's not coming up till later in the meeting.
Okay. So why didn't you point this out before when we had made the request?
I did mention that when I received the request for the bids. I also did mention that again when I sent the bids over to you prior to the meeting.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys see any issue with these reports at all.
There's a $9,400 charge here for a fire restoration company. What was that for again? I don't remember approving any work for fire restoration.
So if you recall, actually, it was the June board meeting, I believe, where the board motioned and approved that. I can pull up the minutes here on Vantica if you need me to.
Your word's good with me. There's also a $48 charge here for office supple. What does that mean?
Office services?
It says office supple.
That may be a typo, but for the office services, it would be printings in the office, mailings to owners.
Got it.
Things like that.
So I'm looking at this AP receivable report, and all of these homeowners have negative balances. All these people owing us money?
Let me pull up the report real quick in Vantica while I got it here. So those are actually people who are paid ahead. So the negative just shows that they're paid ahead.
That's what that is. Okay.
Well, while you bring that up, though, there are a couple with some pretty large balances. I had sent you a request to send them 10-day letters, and I haven't received a response on that. I know this isn't the time to discuss that. That'd be better for the executive meeting, but I just wanted to point that out while we're discussing this.
Okay. I'll look back at my emails.
So, yeah, I would approve these reports based on the answers to these questions.
I vote for approval.
I second that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, can we have a formal motion for the minutes? Sorry.
I motion to approve the financials.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Yikes. Hopefully none of us have a treasurer like the example that we just put on display there for you. And I'm sure none of us do. But it was worth noting that what happens when you're not prepared for a board meeting and how much time can be just eaten up by not being prepared. You know, what went right in that example was unfortunately not a whole lot, but at least the board of directors did get an accurate snapshot of the financial health of the association, as well as some actions that need to be taking place in the receivables. The treasurer clearly was not prepared, was shuffling papers, asking questions, looking at the information in real time for the first time. This eats up a whole lot of time at your board meetings when you're digesting information for the first time, because there will be questions. And one thing we do at Prospect is we mail out our board packs or email out our board packs, usually about anywhere between 3 to 5 business days prior to your board meeting. So it's best to review that information and understand that information so you can ask questions ahead of the board meeting. So when you get to the board meeting, you can strictly do the business portion of what you're going to be asked to approve versus discussing it for the first time and looking at it for the first time. You had board of directors in there asking questions about specific invoices, specific line items, and unfortunately that information is not always readily available. So long as there's a reliable internet connection, we at Prospect Management do have access to Vantica software and can look up that information rather quickly. But if we're in a location that doesn't have reliable internet, we're kind of in a hard place as we can't access that information. So it's best if you see issues, ask them ahead of time. It reduces the amount of time you'll spend in your board meetings. And then also too, one thing that I think everybody can benefit from is just to attend a How to Read Your Financials seminar with our accounting department. It's a great seminar that they put on. It takes about a half hour and it gives it sheds a lot of light onto the financial reports you get from us, and it makes it a whole lot easier to understand. I know financials can be a little overwhelming at first, but once you get the explanations on how to interpret, it becomes a whole lot easier. And finally, I'll end with this and we'll move on to the next presentation, is who should be making motions and seconding motions. That was the one thing that happened in there that I briefly pointed out. So we'll talk a little bit more on that here in the next scenario, which I call the Meh of Directors board meeting. I hope you enjoy.
All right, well, thank you all for taking time out of your night once again to come to Shady Oaks board meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Whatever, it's like 3 o'clock somewhere, right? That's what I always say.
Give or take, yeah.
So we have that first item of business is to approve the minutes. Anybody have any comments on the minutes or anything? No? All right, we'll consider the minutes approved. And then we'll email our property manager to make sure to get them out to all the homeowners. So the next item of business was Flo wanted us to do some grading work around her unit. I don't know if anybody saw the bid. I kind of glanced at it, really didn't spark any interest. I don't know if anybody has discussion.
I haven't checked my email in months.
You haven't?
No.
Nice. Vacation a lot?
Can we just put that, like, table that for now and talk about it later?
I don't see why not. I mean,
I say we just approve it now.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not opposed to doing that either. There was some great.
Can you tell me what it's like, because I didn't see it?
Yeah, so it was basically just doing some small grading work. It was like $1,000 going through, Happy Mowing Company.
I didn't see it either.
Wait, is it at her expense?
No, it'd be at ours, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Well, whatever the board wants.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve it just so we can get on. So anybody object to that motion?
No.
All right, we'll just
Don't you
approve
wanna second
it.
it,
We'll just
somebody?
proceed with the work.
Can I second it or something?
Well, we just voted in favor, so why do we need to second it? Everybody's in agreement.
I thought that was the way we're supposed to do stuff.
Yeah, semantics. All right. So, I forgot we have a homeowner here. Homeowner, do you have anything you want us to discuss tonight on your behalf?
I think you guys are doing a great job.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like the new flowers we put around your home?
Yeah, they're great.
I know, right? They're
Yeah.
awesome. Love them.
Thank you for that, by the way.
I did it myself because I wanted to save us some money because I just, I had some free time. My wife has this little garden in her backyard. We got vegetables and stuff back there, and there's little critters that come running around all the time, and birds' nests everywhere. It's great. It's our little sanctuary.
Well, thank you for doing the work.
Yeah, no problem. Does anybody care if I get reimbursed for that at all? Just for the material, not the labor? I mean,
Go ahead.
Do you have a receipt or something? We gotta have something, don't we?
no, yeah, I mean, I bought these plants
Just
like
write
years
something.
ago.
Just write something.
Years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, if you write something.
I mean, it's only like $300, $400 or something like that. It's nothing big.
I think he should be reimbursed for his labor too. Personally, he did a really good job. Pay him for his time too, sure.
I don't want to charge for my time. I think that's blurring lines there. I think for my material costs, which we'll figure, let's just say $300, call it a day. That's about what it probably cost me if I would have bought it outright.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and approve that.
Okay. Mandy, do you approve of that?
Sure.
All right,
I'm not gonna approve that.
Okay, well,
I
that's
think
okay.
we need to have proof of what was paid.
Well, that's
You gave
the
us
rest of the board.
Well, I'm outvoted.
So we'll just call the vote 3-1. I get paid. Thank you all. Sorry, Jenny, you didn't appreciate my flowers.
I think they're really nice, I just think we need to show documentation. where we're
Clearly
spending our
not,
money.
since you don't want to give me money for them. I see how it is. So, anyways, moving down the agenda.
She's not going to be on the board much longer.
Oh yeah, but I can't wait. So, anyways, we have our last item of business, which was approving that $14,000 worth of grading work or the foundation work we need to do. That's for the one homeowner who has that basement leak that's been ongoing for probably close to 10 years now. Kyle, I think that impacts you, so you'll have to exclude yourself from this conversation, which is understandable because obviously you're a homeowner, so
Do you care if I just sit in?
Yeah, but you shouldn't really chime in on it. But if you have questions or whatever, by all means, feel free to just give us your 2 cents. So I'm going to make a motion we deny that. Just because I think it's money ill spent, we really probably should just, maybe get an engineer in there versus just taking a vendor's bid at $14,000 to approve would be my suggestion.
Well, I agree if we only have one proposal.
I think you should really just take that proposal. This work should be done right away. How many people do you need doing the job?
If it's been going on for 10 years,
Well,
I
it's
think
been
we need
going
to
on
get
for
it done.
10 years, but are we gonna really resolve the problem? Maybe you need I kind of agree with Mike now. We need an engineer out there to make sure we resolve it, and then that's the final ending. We're just going off what one vendor is saying they think is what the problem is.
And I agree, it's probably something along the lines of there's some fluff built into that proposal. Why do you have to excavate against the whole side of the building to waterproof it? You know, why can't you do something else to reduce that cost? I mean, it's not like we're flush with cash, so we can't just be giving away money to people.
So, you know, instead of an engineer, why don't you guys like have a board committee investigate the leaks?
Do you know anyone who's a professional in that lives in the association? I still think that we should have an engineer come out.
I'm okay with Mike taking a look at it.
Well, I mean, whatever you guys decide, I'll do. I mean, I'm just, you know, just the president of nobody.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Approve the bid or approve Mike?
Approve Mike.
I second
Wait,
it.
are we paying him?
Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion carries.
Nay.
Okay. Make sure you mark Jennifer's dissent in the meeting minutes, please. All right, so.
And make sure you don't mark Kyle's.
Yeah, and with that said, we'll adjourn the meeting. Anybody object to adjourning the meeting?
No.
No. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Wow, let's take a moment to unpackage all that. But let's first start with what went right. What went right there? There was a couple things that were good, and then we'll go on to the wrong, which is a whole lot more. But you did have the member at large attempting to get the board of directors on the right track. Clearly, she was showing frustration, and rightfully so, because that meeting just flew off the rails. The member at large was challenging the president on actions being asked of the board of directors, which specifically pertain to the board president that's going to become a foundation repair expert, having really no firsthand knowledge or experience of dealing with it other than he dealt with a foundation repair once. Maybe don't do that and use an engineer. But what went wrong? I mean, obviously there was a complete disregard for Robert's Rules of Order. There weren't really any rhythm or rhyme to how they were approving motions, or if motions were even being made. There was a complete disregard for any transparency when the board president just throws out a number of $300 for a reimbursement for plants. Where's the documentation? Where's the proof? But the board still approved it. The homeowner was suggesting actions for the board of directors to take. The homeowner even made a motion that the president asked to be second on, but then later corrected the homeowner that they need to exclude themselves from voting. Very confusing, very unusual, but the intent of this whole thing was to more or less show what happens when you're not following Robert's Rules of Order, what happens when you deviate from your agenda, and the implications that are impacted by that. The biggest risky run of not having any structure in how you're going to be approving your votes from meeting to meeting is that you're leaving yourself exposed as a board member and potentially your association, because your minutes are an official record of what took place during the meeting. And when you have homeowners making motions, or a property manager making motions, or calling motions to a vote and carrying motions, that's extremely problematic, because technically only the president of the association can do that. It's not anything that a property manager can do or another board member can do. It all needs to be by the president per Robert's Rules of Order, and it's just a generally recognized way to conduct a meeting. Now, when you get into Robert's Rules of Order, we see a lot of weird nuances from property to property. And it's most of the time, and I think majority of you would agree, that whenever you're on an agenda item, you're going to start discussing a topic. And then you'll go through your discussions, and then eventually it will say, okay, do I have a motion to approve? The motion will be seconded, and then it will be called to a vote, and they'll be all in favor, all against, and then the motion carries. What technically should happen in Robert's Rules of Order is before any discussion takes place, a motion should be made to do the action being asked. So if it's a snow removal contract, your motion would be like, I motion to approve the snow removal contract. Then it would be seconded. First and seconded aren't votes in favor, you're just motioning this to open it up to discussion. Once you have that motion seconded, then it would open up into discussion where the board president would set the terms on that discussion. So let's say it's going to be kind of a contentious debate with the board. The board president may want to limit that discussion to no more than 2 minutes per board member to say why they're for or against that motion. And then at the end of the discussion, where all the board members get their 2 minutes, the president then calls that motion to a vote. Just because you made a motion, just because you seconded a motion, does not mean you're voting in favor of the motion. That's why there's always that vote, show of hands vote at the end. And it is something fun to do. It is something fun to try, and it will reduce your meeting times. I can assure you that. When you limit the amount of time, or even using like a timed agenda, it will significantly cut back the amount of time you just spend on discussing issues. And it further reinstills why you should be prepared going into board meetings and researching that information to make sure you get the most out of your couple minutes you have to say why you're for or against something. Now, not all the time is that always going to work out, because there are some agenda items that just need to be discussed in person, where you're not necessarily going to be taking any action, so you're not following Robert's Rules of Order on that, because Robert's Rules of Order strictly pertain to you when you are approving things, not when you're just discussing things. So keep that in mind the next time you're going to approve something, is try and follow Robert's Rules of Order in the right way. Couple other things is, the best thing you can do is try as much as possible to avoid the side discussions. I know it inevitably happens. It's a fun kind of, atmosphere during board meetings, and you want to catch up with people. But when you're doing the business part of the meeting, just try and minimize that as best as possible. Don't do it at all. And finally, one thing that I think could be done differently is, clearly this board of directors does need to attend many, many more of our trade shows, because they have some issues. So I hope you'd enjoy that. We have just seen several extreme examples of what works and doesn't work when we conduct board meetings. Now, a lot of those things are a lot less than where we brought it to, but those issues do come up once in a great while, and it's best to have a plan. Being prepared and having a sound understanding of the items to be presented, discussed, and voted on at a meeting will not only reduce the length of your meeting significantly, it will also meet the board's fiduciary responsibility of the association. Whether you have an angry homeowner, an ill-prepared treasurer, or a bully board member, having a plan on how to address those potential issues ahead of time will make the meeting run smoother and create a more professional demeanor at subsequent board meetings. Don't forget to go to pmcwi.com to review our previously recorded virtual presentations for more information and practice on running good, effective meetings. We will now open it up to questions, so feel free to use the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and we'll answer those when they come in. I hope you enjoyed.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike and the property managers, for that amazing performance. I think there was a lot of great takeaways, even a lot of great reminders for myself. So during the presentation, we did have a couple of questions, and I thought I would just, in case some folks weren't following the chat, Barbara asked why the president couldn't vote. Mike mentioned that the president should only vote in order to break a tie, and that is according to Robert's Rules of Order. So there again, if Robert's Rules of Order is something that you need help or assistance with, let us know, and we will be, wait, am I on mute?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. All right, thanks. Sorry, I just saw messages coming in. Oh, Dan's got Robert's Rules of Order, so maybe he plans on speaking a little bit on that tonight. But we've got some great resources on that as well, so be sure to connect with your manager. And I believe we've got some resources on our website as well. Pat had asked about the annual meeting being held virtually and being concerned about owners. And, Pat, our best suggestion for that has been to mute all of the owners, kind of similar that we've done in this format here tonight, and mute them upon entry. And then if you are going to open it up, which in a virtual format, I really wouldn't recommend it, since at the end of the day, the purpose of the annual meeting is to conduct business, official business of the association that affects the entire association. I would kind of limit commentary to chat, and that's kind of a way that you can help to control that. And not to silence anyone, because certainly allowing folks the ability to comment in the chat gives them the opportunity to speak. But when you get into muting and unmuting, a lot of the times people have, background noise or something else distracting going on, and it can just kind of very quickly get out of hand. So I think a great tool that we've found in the last couple of years working under these different times is to utilize the chat feature. How do we document specific homeowner issues in the minutes, but also maintain that person's privacy? So, and this was from Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. So basically and again, we've got some great tools. If you're looking, we've got a great example of sample minutes that we can provide. And it kind of shows how owners, they should, because they are coming to the board meeting, they should be acknowledged in your minutes, usually last name, unit number, or something along those lines. And then you can list their concern. Now, if you're talking about specific financial concerns or issues that are discussed during executive session, those should be only recorded in the executive minutes, and those in those executive minutes would only be privy to the board. I don't see that we have anything else, and I know I am excited, and I bet Dan and Lydia are excited that we are on time this year. So without further ado, it is 6 p.m. and time to turn it over to Dan and Lydia and for their portion of the event. And then we will take this right up to 7 p.m. And I will be here to moderate. So I'll take you guys off of mute.
Mine's off.
Okay.
Me too, we're good.
Take it away.
All right, I'll start if that's all right, because one, I really enjoyed the presentations. Two, some of the unit owner meetings, I loved the skit part of it and was enjoying it. In fact, I had sent in chat to Laura privately, sort of saying, I'm loving this. As to the president voting issue, I just want to sort of make sure we're all on the same page as to Robert's rules. So Robert's rules says the chair, which is normally the president of a meeting, should vote along with the members whenever the vote is by ballot, which is very rare in a board meeting. So let's just be sort of frank. But in a unit owner meeting, it's almost all the time. And he should vote only when otherwise, so if there's not a ballot, he should vote only when he wants to use his vote to affect the results, which is normally when there's a tie. But he can also affect the vote when whoever is making a motion makes a motion and it's going to be approved because the vote is by one, and his vote would make it a tie. And the effect of the tie would make it that the vote doesn't pass because most votes have to pass by a majority. That would also affect the vote. And hence he can use it in those two positions. So as a general rule, Mike's statement is absolutely right. The president/chair does not vote based on Robert's rules. But if you have a ballot vote, like an election is always a ballot vote, the president does vote. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer to the question, but I at least wanted to make sure everybody understood what was happening there. Okay, and now we're to the point of question and answer. We can talk about stuff if everybody wants to just hear us talk, or we can invite you guys to ask us questions and we can really answer the stuff you guys care about. So while we're waiting, go Lydia. Oh, Laura, you've got a, perfect, thank you.
I hit mute and then it wouldn't let me unmute again, so. Got it. So what's the format, Laura? Are people gonna type their questions in chat? Do you want folks to raise their hand and you're gonna unmute them, or how would you like?
Generally, and what we've done in the past is just, if people have questions, they can ask. If there's something that you guys feel would be important to talk about, I think that would be beneficial. We've always kind of kept it pretty open. And I don't see that we've had any questions so far. So I don't know, Mike or Dan, if you maybe wanted to give a little update from the LAC committee, or if there's, oh, here, we've got a question. Could you discuss common liability issues or the top one that you see faced by an HOA board?
Yeah, assuming we're talking about an HOA and not a condominium, so I'm going to make that distinction. So if it's a condominium board, the most common issue is making your documents right so you can actually insure all of the materials, all of the units, everything, literally everything, other than the unit owner's personal property. That's the one we've talked about endlessly. On an HOA board, it's making sure your documents are clear so that you know where that line is between what an HOA covers and what the owners of the various members of the homeowners association, what their insurance has to cover and what amount of insurance you would be expected to normally carry, because you can go on the relatively cheap with your HO6 policy. You cannot go on the relatively cheap with your homeowner association policy, because odds are pretty good you're covering your house and all of the liability associated with it. And that means your personal assets are at risk. So there's a significant difference, but that's my basic answer is make sure you have at least $1 million and buy yourself an umbrella policy, unless you're judgment proof. And by that, I mean your house is fully mortgaged and you don't really have any assets. Then you can make your own decision, but otherwise I wouldn't risk it. So Lydia, you take the next one. Pick one you like.
Oh, that's okay. I wanted to mention, I think our associate, Kataj Brown, is also on the call. Kataj, are you there? Speak so we can see you.
Yes, I am. How's everybody doing?
Good, good. I just want to introduce Kataj too, because he'll have answers for us as well as time goes on here. So what's the next question?
All right, so Pat has a question, and I think I'm going to preface this. Based on Pat's previous question, I believe that she doesn't have us as her management company, but Pat, and I shouldn't also assume, but Pat is also wondering how to handle a property manager breaching their contract.
Ooh. That's a spicy one. What you do, first of all, is contact your association counsel, because remember, no matter who your property manager is, your association counsel is your lawyer. It's not the property manager's lawyer. We have business relationships with a lot of property management companies, but the associations are our clients. So if you're having any issues or have questions about your property management contract, contact your attorney first and foremost, and then we can figure out what's going on. I mean, a lot of it's going to be fact-based, you know, what's actually happening with the property management company, what seems to be the problem, and we'll see what terms actually apply to your situation and kind of go from there. A lot of times it's just a matter of opening communication lines with the management company and figuring out what's gone awry. Because if things are going wrong, usually the first thing that goes wrong is you're not communicating well. Something went off the tracks. So our job is to kind of bring you back, figure out what your contract says, how it protects you as the association, and what you can do from there.
Kataj, pick one you like.
Let's see.
Laura's picking them, not us.
Yeah, so I can actually kind of popcorn it between the three of you if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one for Kataj. In reviewing our capital needs as a result of our reserve study, we want to fund our requirements for upcoming capital expenditures. We are looking at all funding options. We understand that some associations require new owners to make a contribution to the reserves at closing in the amount of, on average, two times the monthly dues. Is this legal to require new owners to make this contribution?
Okay, so just so you know, Laura, the litigation and dispute resolution questions, I think, are just more of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
On what I do for the team and those type of, so I'm gonna pass this one, but if there's anything about court, suing, disputes, people mad at each other, that's my area.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Taj.
I'll jump in. So I'll jump in on this one. And here's sort of my short answer. That has been, is it legal? My answer is yes, if it's in the documents.
Yes.
And has that been litigated in Wisconsin, where people may well argue, wait a second, it's a common element expense that you're funding, and therefore you've got to do it with common element payments, which are assessments based on proportionality. This is outside of proportionality. Frankly, I've never seen the argument made or not made successfully, but could it be made? Sure. And there's not a case in Wisconsin on it, so I don't know where the case would come down. But generically, I can tell you it's used by a lot of associations, this method, and 2 months has become pretty standard.
Yep, I agree with that.
I know no one's asking my opinion, but I agree as well. I'd say about 98%, maybe 95% of our associations have a capital contribution, either written into their rules or an amendment, and it's a great way to help fund your reserve. In fact, we have a few associations who are now starting to do 3 times just because of costs are going up. So next question is from Vic. We are considering introducing a move-in and/or out fees into our condo building to better address the damage in the buildings. What insights can you provide about the benefits or concerns to doing this, and how is it best implemented?
What was the last one, Laura? How is it best?
How is it best implemented?
Okay, that's what I thought. It cut off a little bit.
Sorry.
I'll start on this one. So yeah, move-in, move-out fees are pretty common, especially in single building associations like high rises, where you've got elevator use and common hallways and things that can easily get dinged up. My caution would be to the board, just make sure that the fee itself is reasonable. I mean, don't shoot the moon and make it thousands of dollars, because frankly, you're going to get pushback on that from the owners, right? Try to figure out about how much damage typically you see when things go bad as far as a move in and move out, and set it there. Great idea to refund the money. I mean, make it a deposit. If they move out cleanly and don't screw anything up, then they should get their money back, right? There's no reason to keep the money. But having that in reserves is a good idea, just in case, because if the owner if it's a move out, not with a tenant, but actually the owner is leaving, it's hard to go after them once they're gone and not an owner anymore for damages. So having that money safely with you when they do the move out is probably a good move. I haven't seen any pushback really with owners, tenants, landlord type owners with this type of a scheme, as long as it's reasonable and implemented fairly, and the same over time. Can be in rules. I don't think it needs to be in declaration or bylaws. It's not usually something you see in those documents, so I think you'd be pretty safe not having it conflict with something in your declaration or bylaws if you pass a rule. My dog agrees.
Great. All right. Ted is wondering, is the executive session similar to closed session as used in governments? Do you need to note and describe the topic to be discussed in the executive session? And I think just a general overview of what should be held in a regular meeting, and then what should be discussed in executive session to kind of further dive down on that.
So let's cover the real basic law. The real basic law is this: a board in Wisconsin, absent something in your documents to the contrary, could literally do everything in the same words, executive session or closed session. Robert's Rules has now adopted the use of the word executive session under Chapter 9. So I'm going to use executive session, but these are interchangeable words. Literally, you could, and hear me out, could do everything in executive session. We strongly recommend against it. We are huge proponents of doing everything in open session, except those items you can't or shouldn't do in open session, which are pretty self-explanatory. Litigation items, bid items, personnel items. I feel like I'm medical issues. I feel like I'm missing something, but it's, go ahead.
Did you say collections? Delinquent accounts?
Sorry, yep, collections, because you can't talk about individual unit owners because then you're violating the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So those items that you literally can't do in open session or shouldn't do because your attorney recommends not doing an open session. Otherwise, in those you do in closed session, do you have to need to note the item discussed? No, because you don't have to do anything. Having said all of that, should you? Sure, you should say we're going to talk about collections, or we've got a personnel issue we're going to discuss. Of course, if you only have one employee, you might not want to say we have a personnel issue we're going to discuss. So there are some, there's some room here. And then finally, keep in mind that if your documents say you're going to use Robert's Rules of Order, Robert's Rules of Order have provisions as to how you go into executive session. And that's to make a motion to go into it and you second it. So if your documents have adopted Robert's rules, you've sort of adopted the concept of things are open unless you're going to go into executive session. But that's about as short of a primer as I can give you on executive sessions.
Right. I would just add, Laura, as Dan mentioned, yes, as a Wisconsin Condo Association, you certainly could do everything in executive session, meaning what he's saying is you don't have to have open board meetings because the law doesn't apply to condo boards. But anytime you have meetings that are deemed secret, every owner is going to be interested in what you're talking about, right? If they're not invited, if they don't know what's happening, it's going to be a problem for you. So our general advice on that is to just be transparent as a board, let everybody know you're having a meeting. If owners come, they can certainly observe. They are not participating in the board meeting. There's a very distinct difference there. I mean, if you have owners that are there, make it very clear at the start of the meeting what the rules are. The board is running its business, the board is running its agenda. If the board has time on the agenda for open items or owner concerns, great. That's a great idea. If you've got owners in the room, give them a couple of minutes each to say their piece, but you do not have to have a dialogue back and forth on the topic. You take the information and say, thank you, we're gonna take that under consideration and then move on. I probably opened a door to a whole another discussion, but that's okay.
Well, I think that's great. No, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. So looks like we've got another question from Nancy. Nancy says that we have private roads and our snow remover uses way too much salt. It is hard on our landscaping environment. Whenever I bring up using less salt, I'm told that due to liability, we have to leave it as is. Is low salt really leaving us vulnerable?
I'll take this one. So here's the deal. So if you're having if you have an owner, a particular owner who gets into some kind of accident, whether it be vehicular or by foot, or if someone gets hurt, if they do end up suing the association for negligence for not salting the road, and that salter or landscaper is called in as a witness, or there's some expert witnesses talking about how much salt should have been down. And if that person who's on the stand says, well, I had a conversation with a board member or the association board who told us to reduce the salt, that could shift liability back towards the association. So my advice would to be, let the salt movers put down as much salt as they deem necessary. That way, if something does happen, then no one from the association told them not to put it down or reduce it, or whatever the case may be. And therefore, the argument would be that the liability is squarely on them, that they alone did not put down the necessary salt to keep the road from freezing, and that's why somebody got hurt. So I don't think that the association, especially if you're not a salt expert, if you're not a landscaping expert. I think it's best that when you hire those people to do those types of job, you let them do it and you hope and pray that they do it right. And if they do it wrong, then at least at the end of the day, the association hasn't meddled in what they have going on. And then if someone gets hurt, then the appropriate party to go after is the landscaper.
Wow, that was a great question and just so timely too. And Kataj, that was an amazing answer. I think our managers, we're gonna take this clip and we are going to play it at every meeting when this comes up, because it never fails. It is something that comes up at almost every meeting or mid-season, that somebody feels there's too much salt and that they want to look at reducing that. So I think that's.
And so another thing is if somebody, I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion from another landscaper. I'm just saying, I don't think it's a good idea that the board or, members go talk to that landscaper and say, hey, stop. You can get a second guy to come out and go, hey, what do you think? Is this too much salt? And if that guy goes, yeah, that is a little bit, now at least you have another, specialist in that area telling you something different. I don't think it should just be a unilateral opinion of a board member who has no, expert knowledge on or scientific knowledge on road salting.
Let me jump in too, Laura, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So having represented a number of snowplow companies over the years, especially in my much earlier years, they make their money not on plowing snow, but on salt and putting down salt. And so there's a lot of variation and room available. So one option to at least consider as a board is to require them to provide you with a contract that's, we're going to provide X amount, we're going to up to X number of inches of snow, we're providing you with all the ice control treatment, because sometimes it's other than salt, and all the snow removal you're going to need. And you guys can pick the inches, and your property managers probably have a better idea of what the average number of inches are in Wisconsin than I do. But at least then you've got a number, and the liability still stays with the contractor, because he's got to put on whatever it requires up to that number of inches. Just what we kind of ended up with in some of the various situations where this arose. I'll just leave it like that.
All right. And then the other thing is I've gotten a couple of messages via direct message. If you do want to just direct message me because you don't want others to see the question that you may have, you can absolutely do that as well, and we'll keep it strictly confidential. So we do have another question about, okay. Hi, Nancy. I know who this is. If our bylaws state that our budget has to be voted on by owners, if the budget does not pass, how many times do we have to take the budget to vote?
Oh boy.
times 7. Oh no, that was the answer to a different question.
2/3. No. No, honestly, unfortunately, the answer probably is you got to keep taking it back until you get something palatable for the owners to vote on. But keep in mind, the only way to change that is to change your bylaws, right? Change the procedure. So if it's not working for your association and every year you've got owners that don't vote or shoot it down, or you don't get a quorum to approve a budget, I've seen that happen before too, because people are just apathetic and they don't show up. So if you don't have a quorum at your meeting, you can't get owners to approve a budget because you can't do business without a quorum. All these things are great indicators that it's time to update those bylaws and change that, because it's not a law in Wisconsin that owners approve budgets. In fact, most of the associations, I'm sure the managers will tell you too, say that the board does the budget and just presents it to the ownership at the annual meeting or before, saying, here it is. You guys elected us to do this job. We did the job. And here's what your assessments are. So that's something we can change. It just takes a little work and advanced planning. So if this is something that continually comes up for your association, good indicator, it's time to look at those documents and make some updates.
And I believe that they are. All right. So we have another one here. What are the requirements regarding the minutes of the meeting? Do the minutes of the open session have to be made available to the owners?
I think I'm up. Yes. How'd I do? Okay. And I'm going to tell you why. You'll notice if you look at 703.20, it doesn't say that. But most associations are Chapter 181 corporations as well, which means you're a corporation. You have Inc. at the end of your name or corporate or something. And in that case, the statute, which is 181, whatever, 1601 specifically says the minutes of all meetings of members and records of all actions approved by members for the past 3 years will be available at the principal office. I'm sort of shortcutting it, but that's the short answer.
And then what about those, and then I have a couple follow-up questions here too, kind of along those same lines that I got in the chat. What about the executive session minutes?
The only people with access to executive session minutes are people who would have been entitled to be in the room. So if you're a board member and you can't make it to the meeting, you're entitled to read the executive session minutes to see what was said in executive session. There's not an executive session for unit owner meetings, so those are the only executive session minutes.
Great. All right, so if a previous board approved an expense, say like a pest control inside a standalone unit, does the owner have the right to then rely on that previous decision? And Laura, I think I'm just gonna, so basically I think they're looking to see is that if does that set, it has that previous board set precedence?
So meaning if another owner comes up with the same expense and says, I need this done, you approved it for so-and-so, you should approve it for me? Is that the question?
I think that, and then I also think it would be good to, if that existing owner, so say that then the new board decided they were no longer going to provide that interior pest removal to that unit.
Aha, tricky one, because I'm guessing the documents say one thing and a board did something else. Is that kind of the deal?
Yes.
Or maybe it's arguable that the documents say they shouldn't be paying for interior pest control, but somebody did in the past.
Yes.
This comes up all the time, and not with pest control, I'm just saying with anything else, because yes, boards try to do their job the best they can, and they don't always talk to an attorney to say, what do our documents really say on this part? We're just going to try to figure it out ourselves, and that can lead to issues. So generally speaking, as a board, when you're elected and you're looking at an issue, you should look at it like we're looking at it for the first time. This is us, we're the new board. If this board decides to hire an attorney and get an opinion on something, you can rely on that attorney's opinion, okay? Precedent does end up being an issue because owners like to bring up the past all the time, and that's not something you can control. It's gonna happen, but the board can rely on professional opinions, and maybe the past board did not do that. And so you'll have that over them, that you hired an attorney and you are relying on that professional opinion to guide your steps going forward. So I would feel better as a board doing that rather than just saying, throw up your hand, well, they did it like that before, I guess we'll just keep doing it, because you know it's probably not correct. So you got to change course at some point.
And to piggyback on that, when the board does approve certain expenses for individual unit owners and individual unit owners in the interior of their units, it's always good to have some kind of waiver or release go along with that. Having the unit owner sign, hey, this is a one-time thing. You understand that this does not, is not reoccurring. Just have something in writing that they can sign so the board can keep it on record, so that if that individual unit owner comes and says, you did it last time, do it again, then you have that release. Or if other unit owners tried to raise that, there's unfair treatment, and you can also pull that document out and say this was a special situation that the board voted on and agreed, and we're not doing this for everybody.
Great question, great answers. Next, we've got a couple of follow-ups back to the salt issue. So we have a couple, the first follow-up is we have an owner requesting no salt be used around their unit. If the board gets a release of liability from the owner, would that suffice? And then the second question is with regards to salt, when is there too much salt to the point of damaging buildings? I think, whoever feels best fit. Kataj, I know you had some great insight on this.
Sure. So the one about around the owner's unit, again, we need to, that particular unit owner needs to understand what the common elements are, what the limited common elements are, and what the unit owner owns, right? And typically for 99% of the time, the unit owner is only in control of what's in their unit. I'm pretty sure nobody's pouring salt inside the unit, so that's not an issue. But a lot of times those walkways and decks and things like that are limited common elements, or common elements being the sidewalk. So, that's not the unit owner's area that they control. And furthermore, if someone was to get hurt on the sidewalk or deck right out there, then they definitely would have grounds to come after the association. So I think there needs to be some kind of treatment to that area to make it safe, just to protect the association. Once you're inside the unit, if you want no frozen floors, if you want to slip and fall, slip and slide, that's on you. And of course, that the association would not be liable for it. But once it goes outside of those four walls, the association will be gambling, because if someone does get hurt, they're not going to sue that unit owner, they're going to sue the association. So we would, I don't think the unit owner has control over the maintenance and upkeep of the limited common elements and the common elements. That's pretty much standard on every, at least condominium declaration that I've seen in Wisconsin in my time of doing this.
Yeah, that's a good answer, because that release, how can you release liability for the whole association, right? This is why the association has insurance, first of all. So things are going to happen, guys. It's going to happen that somebody slips and falls, even if they put tons of salt out there. They can't be there 24/7, and a lot of stuff's going to happen. So you may have an insurance claim at some point anyway, but that release you might get from a homeowner, I agree with Kataj, isn't going to be worth the paper it's written on. So that's not going to protect you there. What about the salt levels harming the building?
Yeah, so with respect to the salt question, when is there too much salt to the point of damaging buildings?
I would think that, if it was that much of an issue, the association and the board is always, and we've recommended a lot of times when they do have, whether it be structural issues, environmental issues, whatever, is to get some kind of expert out there, get another opinion, get somebody else, uninterested, to come in and weigh in on whether it is going to hurt the building or damage it or whatnot. You just don't want to leave it to lay people, right? Like, I can't tell you, I'm not a structural engineer or chemist. I couldn't look at something and say what it is going to do. So we would hire somebody else to come in and tell us if that's what it is or it isn't.
Yeah, the answer is going to be an engineer or chemist. Says it's too much.
All right. Well, I've got another great question here. So and it's a topic near and dear to all of our hearts, rentals. How does an owner prove that the person living in their unit is a close family member?
Well, I've had some knockdown, drag out cases over the years about proving who is in the unit, and there's a statute, I believe it's 703 315, basically says that you have to produce lease and rental agreements. And basically what I'm trying to say is you have to at least identify the people who live in the unit somehow, some way. While I don't believe there's any type of law that requires they produce like a license or some kind of identification, but there needs to be some kind of agreement to the association. And there needs to be something on paper for the association and for people that are not on the actual deed, that are not the owners. That needs to be listed, and that's a start. Of course, the association board is free to, and the association is free to amend their documents to provide more, and that's an option if they can get everybody on board. But I would start by just requiring unit owners to at least identify who are permanent residents inside the association.
Right, and keep in mind, I mean, your documents might say no rentals, but it doesn't say you have to be owner occupied. And those are two very different things, right? Because they can, if it doesn't say units have to be owner occupied, I can say, well, I'm just letting my friend live here. We don't have a lease, so there'd be no paperwork to produce under the statute, which lets everybody live in a loophole. So what I'm getting at is, if as a board or as an association owners group, you strongly want to make sure that most of your units are owner occupied, we need to draft the documents accordingly and use the right words to say that, because it's just no rentals or, you know, a rental cap without more describing what owner occupancy is. And we can say it includes immediate family. And that gets right back to the heart of the question. How do you prove the person that's living there is immediate family? Well, I guess at some level, you have to sort of take the owner's word for it. And the, you know, if it passes a smell test, as far as do they have similar names, you know, do they look alike? I mean, it starts to get a little crazy, but mostly if your aim is to have owner occupied units, then you have to draft your documents to say so. And then from there, it makes it easier on the board to do its job, because otherwise it's hard to keep track of if somebody in the unit is actually a renter with a rental agreement, or they're just allowing somebody to live there that's a family member, and it gets really difficult to parse out. So we try to make it as clear cut as possible in the documents, and then it's easier for the board to enforce.
All right, we've got another great question, and I think this would be a great opportunity for you guys to also expand a little bit further on the document review program that you offer. But the question is, and then I think that would be a great opportunity for you guys to get into that, because as a management company, I can't tell you how many times, I think I actually recently asked you for updated materials to pass along. It's certainly something that we suggest and encourage our clients to consider. So the question is here: how often should an attorney review the executive summary and documents supplied to unit lenders? Should the board review them once in a while as well? I think the question is pointed more towards about, you know, making sure that the documentation that we provide to the lenders is correct. I think it can kind of fold into a great way that they can make sure that their documents are in order is by participating in your program.
So I'll start at least. So the executive summary is required by statute, is the starting point here. And the statute requires it to contain certain things. And until the statute is again amended, the executive summary would have minimal changes, absent changes to the documents. So if you change your documents, you probably have to change your executive summary. So my answer as to how often would be, I would think you would review it annually, at least minimally, to say, did we change our documents at all? No. Okay. Is there any significant change in our reserves? No. Okay. We don't need to really change the executive summary. On the other hand, if the statute's amended or if your documents are amended, you need to make that change. The second part of it is going to be, so what is it the board should review in the lender? You'll notice they said that the question also includes documents supplied by condo unit lenders. Well, those are generally questionnaires. There's no statute requiring anybody to fill out those questionnaires. But of course, everybody's stuck filling out those questionnaires. And I don't mean stuck, but I mean, let's be realistic. Lenders aren't going to lend unless you fill out their questionnaire. If you don't fill out the questionnaire, the seller's not going to be able to sell because the buyer's not going to be able to buy because the lender won't lend them the money. So the property managers or the board ends up filling out the lender questionnaires, and the lender questionnaires would be nice if they were standardized. But of course, every lender has a different questionnaire that can range from 1 page to 5 pages. I guess would be about the longest I've seen. And so it's a hard one to answer. But my basic answer is if your documents are in order, you are a lot farther along in making sure the lenders will lend, and that your condominium association will get the best rates you can get, at least in terms of lending dollars, which will increase the value of your units. Having said all that, yeah, our condominium review package, it's a simple policy or presentation, and it's really this. It's $5,000. It's over the course of 3 years. Included within it is we review all your documents. We write, what we give you a scorecard as to how you did, and then we tell you what was, what needs to be changed under the law, what you should also tell you what you should consider changing for other reasons, and then we give you a price in order to do those changes. The $5,000 sounds like a lot. It's $2,500 in year one, $1,250 in year two, $1,250 in year three. In each of those years, we include what amounts to unlimited phone calls, but really is limited to about twice a month. You can call us 4 times a month. Oh yeah, you're right. I don't do very good math. 4 times a month to answer a question on the phone. The idea is 15 minutes or less, 12 minutes or less, where you ask us a question and we give you a quick answer based on the fact that we understand your documents and how the law works so that you don't get in trouble. So when you budget it over the course of 3 years, and we attend 1 meeting. So in the end, there's no way it doesn't say, our association saved money taking advantage of it. They just flat out save money. But it looks like a big expense, and we get that too. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Not at all. And I think what we'll also do is when we send out the video to all of our board members, we'll also include the information on that as well. Because I think it's a great program. And like you said, a no-brainer. In the end, they'll definitely save money and have a incredibly informed attorney in their back pocket, which I think is something that we'd all like. All right, so we've got a lot more questions and we're getting down to about 15 minutes left. So I do want to try to make sure that we can get through this. So I've got a direct message question. If we still meet, are we going to still meet quorum if there's only 1 vice president, 1 secretary, and 1 member at large? All others have resigned from the board. Our bylaws state that we need to have a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and 2 members at large. So that's vice president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and 2 members at large. And they only have 3 board members. So I think it depends on what their quorum would be.
Yeah, right. That one's sort of stuck on what the bylaws actually say.
Correct.
They may be able to meet quorum among the members they have left, depending on how that section's worded.
As long as it's a majority. So I would say, right, if you're, okay.
I'd say sort of eke along with the majority of the ones you have left and try your best to start twisting arms to get people to fill the positions until the next meeting if you can.
All right, we had a follow-up question on the minutes. Does that mean a paper copy of the minutes must be available to owners, or can the minutes just be provided online? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. If your documents don't say one way or the other, you probably need to mail. But keep in mind, that's another thing you want to change your bylaws for to make it easier on yourselves, because everybody uses email and websites these days. So why not change it to make it legal? So everything electronic is something that's okay, as opposed to, well, we hope this is following the law. I agree.
I wanted to give you the quote legal answer to your prior one.
Oh, sure.
Under the law, except as otherwise provided in the law or in your documents, a quorum of the board consists of a majority of the directors in office immediately before the meeting begins. So if you only have 3, only if 2 show up, you still have a majority.
Ooh, that's helpful.
Oh, that's very helpful.
Is that in 181, Dan?
Yeah. 0824, I think I was reading from, but yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that one that posed the question is a non-stock corporation, because that law. Mhm.
Good point. All right, we've got another one about board members. So, and this is another one in direct message. 3 open board positions. If only one candidate gets on the ballot, agrees to be, and gets 125 votes, but there is 1 or 2 write-in votes. Do we accept those who just got 1 or 2 votes as board members? So I think what this person's trying to say is they have 3 open positions, but the
I got
it. Gets a lot of votes and then the other 2 don't.
The answer is probably yes, unless Lydia's got a different thought. The answer is probably yes, because it's going to be the 3 highest vote getters take the position.
Yep. Unless there's something weird in the documents about how it has to be a majority vote for each position, but that's pretty rare.
Well, and I feel like generally too, when we have 3 open positions and we have 3 people on the ballot, most oftentimes we just call for a motion from the floor to accept the ballot as presented.
Right. Approve the slate, basically, because you have as many candidates as positions open.
And I'm giving good advice.
Yeah, and keep in mind though that the people who were written in may not have actually wanted to be on the board. It might be their neighbor deciding they would be a really good board member and just putting their name down. So I'm not sure you actually have board members yet, but you have potential board members.
Sure. I always try to make sure when somebody nominates somebody that they accept the nomination before we have them write it. Before we instruct folks to write it on the ballot when I'm making the call.
Good.
Getting down to about 12 minutes left here. It looks like we've got a couple more on direct message. A lot of our board discussions have been via email as decisions need to be made in between board meetings. How are email discussions documented?
Email votes for the board are generally okay if you are all unanimous every time. There's a way to do it where you can vote by email and have just 2/3 of the board agree to it, but that's something that has to be written into your bylaws specifically, because it comes from the statutes, but you need to have it in your bylaws. So generally speaking, if your bylaws are silent on it and you can't get together as a board, but you're doing things via email in between board meetings, it's fine to make decisions that way and just keep the email chain handy. As long as everybody agrees. If you reach a point where one board member is dissenting or a couple, all you got to do is call a quick meeting and get on the phone together and discuss it. Because at that point, you're having a board meeting, a special board meeting to talk about the topic, and you don't have to be unanimous to make a decision. You can just go with a majority vote like normal. But the good rule of thumb is anytime you're talking and making email decisions in between board meetings, just make sure at the next board meeting in the minutes, you document the things that you've decided unanimously by email in between times. So you've got a good record of it. And we can change those bylaws to say you can meet virtually and all that kind of fun stuff. But most bylaws in their original form aren't written that way. So we have to sort of work in between.
Great question. Another great answer. So we've got another really good question here. If the board approves an addition to a unit, such as a screen porch, can the board exclude ongoing maintenance assigned to the association on these changes?
Here, yes. And here's the short answer. It's yes, because the statute takes it into account if that change takes place and it increases the cost. So it's almost by nature that would happen unless you actually do it the other way. Specifically, it says all costs and expenses of the improvement and any increased costs of maintenance and repair of that limited common element resulting from the improvement are the obligation of the unit owner. So the answer is yes, unless somebody did something really odd and amended the documents to allow for it, and then who knows? But does that answer the question? The answer is yes, they've got to pay for the changes if you approve it and the maintenance.
And also to add to that, it's probably a good idea to put together an agreement about the maintenance, if it's not clear in the documents going forward, so that when that unit owner sells their unit to somebody else and that screen porch or enclosure or whatever they did on their patio is still there, that the purchaser understands that those maintenance obligations are theirs. And if we record that agreement on the title of the unit, it goes with the title of the unit and nobody can be surprised if they purchase. To put those terms in there is probably a good idea up front. And then there's no confusion as to who's paying for it. If it falls down, who pays to put it back up or not, so on.
Lydia and Dan, could you comment on the ramifications should a board allow a homeowner to claim common element as limited common element for such an expansion like this, and what everybody should be aware of with that?
Well, one, if he's taking common element and turning it into limited common element, by definition, he would need to compensate the other unit owners under the statute for the value of the property that he converted from common element to limited common element. And
or
then,
have to waive it.
yeah, or all the other unit owners have to waive it, but then you have the second part of that, which is the board controls the exterior appearance of the association. Common element by definition is almost exterior appearance, unless I suppose you're doing it in an interior garage. I have a hard time imagining a board approving a unit owner taking common element, but if they are, they're going to need to pay the other unit owners for what was taken.
It's happened where boards have just said, not knowing, just, hey, an owner wants to expand their deck a few feet. Is that okay? And they say, sure. You know, not realizing that what they're really giving up is something that's covered by the statutes. And then the board let one person do it, and then you got the next person, and then they're trying to play catch up, and it gets to be a problem. So there's no real great answer there, except if you're doing it by the book, Dan's absolutely right. There should be some compensation by the owner that's getting the bigger deck, because they're taking away common element from everybody else. Or everybody just agrees to waive the compensation because it's probably just minor ducats anyway for a few feet of common element. And who cares when it's right behind that guy's unit and I'm not using it anyway, which is probably why this mistake keeps happening, because nobody cares until somebody tries to do things by the book. And then we have to play catch up.
Or somebody else, the neighbor wants to expand their deck. And of course, now the neighbor to them doesn't want them to, and now they're upset about the first one.
Right.
And you know how that all works.
Yeah, there's no super great answer to that one, unfortunately. We try to do our best with the after the fact things, as Mike knows very well.
All right, we've just got time for, I think, probably two more. So one of the ones that I want to take, I think it's a really great one, is can or should we prevent owners from applying weed control to common area elements, common areas on their own, and or taking on other maintenance initiatives?
Yeah. So oh, you want it, Dan?
No, I wanted you to take it. So
I was just going to say, Todd,
yeah.
I think this would be a great one for you.
Yeah, so again, the exterior of the condominium, the common elements, the yards, anything outside of the units are just simply not the unit owners. It's not under the unit owner's control. And that falls under altering, that can fall under altering the common element or altering the limited common element, which essentially is a breach of contract. So, you know, it's not on the unit owner to take it upon themselves. There's a host of reasons. You know, we can't have people out there with various chemicals just kind of doing what they want, you know, that aren't professionals. Any type of maintenance, any type of upkeep, that is the association's responsibility, and interfering in that can lead to liability for a breach of contract. We've seen it happen. We've had it on both sides. We've you know, represented the association taking action against the unit owner for doing what they want to the common elements and limited common elements. So it is a real thing. If unit owners do have issues with the appearance, then the appropriate thing is to bring it to the board. That's what they're there for. And if there are enough unit owners that have that issue, then a vote can be taken and something can be done about it. But you got to go through the process. You can't just go rogue.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Kataj there at all. It certainly does open the door to a certain amount of liability, but I will add, just as an additional comment, that some associations documents actually call for owners to take care of certain parts of the common area and the yard. Like they'll define a certain square as, well, this is limited common element to this unit, and the owner is responsible for it. So in those cases, it's okay. I would just say to the board, let's make sure there's something in the documents that allows you to have some control if a particular unit owner isn't keeping up their end of the bargain and isn't making it look nice. Because that can happen sometimes too, where people get sick, you know, can't keep up with things anymore. It would be really great if there was a provision that allowed the board to then take over and do the maintenance, but then charge that cost to the homeowner. So everything outside still looks really nice and is within the board's control after the fact.
All right, last question, and I think it's a really great one, is what are the benefits to having an attorney review contracts like your large scale asphalt replacement, major landscaping improvements, you know, your big ticket contracts that the association might enter into?
I mean, you won't get stuck in a bad deal. At least you'll know, you know, what everything means in the contract. You have a trained professional go over everything with a fine tooth comb to protect the association's interests. I mean, you'd be flabbergasted by some of the contracts that we see that certain associations enter into, and we're like, if you would have ran this past your lawyers, there's no way we would have allowed you to sign this. There are contracts that are totally unfair, one-sided. I mean, just things that are totally can harm the association, that are totally against them, that we would not advise our clients sign. So you need to have a lawyer. I would say any kind of contract, even if it's a small one, because that will take us 2 seconds. We might just be able to look at it and okay it. Definitely the longer technical ones you would want us to. So it can only hurt you if you don't let a lawyer review a contract. It never is going to help you by just going ahead and signing something without legal review.
Right. And by nature, these vendor contracts are written by the vendors and the vendors' attorneys. They're not written with your protection in mind. And you'd be surprised, actually, there's just a few provisions that they're missing, and there's key things. So if you let us take a look at it, we probably can provide some pretty standard language that you can just tell the vendor, we're good with your contract, terms look good, price looks good, what you're saying you're doing looks good, but we need these few additional things put in here to protect the association, and you'd be much better off just signing what's presented to you. And we're talking about just a couple $100s, which is much better than thousands of dollars worth of litigation when they don't do their end of the deal and there's nothing you can do about it.
Dan, any last thoughts?
No, I was reading through a whole bunch of the chat items and could have answered a whole bunch of them even quickly, but the answer is on almost all of this, we could cover most of this with our document review process through a quick phone call on short questions like these. My only thought was thank you for putting this on. This was great.
Well, thank you guys all. You know, of course, Husch Blackwell, we couldn't thank you guys enough. Let's be real here. You guys are really the ones who entice the participation that we get here. So we could not at all do this without you guys. So we certainly appreciate all that you guys do for our mutual clients. And thanks to all of you board members who have joined us this evening. I hope that you have gained some knowledge and taken away some tidbits. And like I said, Kelly in our office will be uploading this to our our website, and also be sending the link out to all of our boards so that in case you weren't able to stick with us or joined us late, you can review that and share that with other board members as well. So thanks again to our sponsors, Husch Blackwell, Weather Pro, Pieper, Kelman, Farmers Insurance, and Paul Davis. We really appreciate everyone. So thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.